Welcome back to Boiler Bytes. Have you ever wondered if it would be possible to set up a solar energy source at your home or place of business? Well, as part of a solar certification program, a group of students from Purdue, along with a professor of mechanical engineering technology, recently performed a solar assessment to help a property owner determine whether or not they could benefit from solar energy.
The grant we got is actually called the Solar Endowment, and it's actually funded by the U.S. Department of Energy out of the National Renewable Energy Lab in Golden, Colorado. The site assessments and the analysis is done by students, and basically students don't come into the project knowing that much about the solar energy and how it's evaluated in the economics. So the starting point for students is to go through a solar certification process. And it's a combination of online training plus field work that gets them this certification.
Implementation of solar energy we can get a lot of electricity from it, and I believe here, though the weather is a little tricky, but then you can still get quite a decent amount of solar energy, and reducing your carbon footprint is, I think, the key to our future.
It's about maybe 20 hours worth of training, just so I would say they're solar literate. And then at that point, it's important to put that textbook training or online training into practice. Typically, we've contacted homeowners that are interested in solar, and the question is the time right to invest? The end goal is to have students that are able to go out to, say, a residence or a small commercial building and evaluate the potential for solar energy. And so it's everything from the existing electrical infrastructure to the amount of shade at the site to the physical space at the site. So the way that's what the end result is, to be able to give that report to a homeowner and say, here is the potential, here's the cost, here's what the payback's going to be.
In doing a solar assessment for a residential area, if the owner is inclined towards reducing his carbon footprint, reducing the amount of electricity he uses from the main power grid, then comes to step 2, where you come to the site and see what can be the possible locations where you can actually put the PV panels, which is photovoltaic panels.
For the assessment, we're going to assess the structure of a PV location along with the preference of the client, and we're going to be looking at the interconnects and the conduit runs, along with taking a solar assessment using a tool called the Solar Pathfinder, which will show us just the shading that's available.
We would love to have, a lower cost of energy to run the farm. So the idea of having solar panels and something that's going to help us, lower the costs of operating a farm and everything, it's a really exciting idea. Once we get the solar panels up, lower the cost of electric per month, and hopefully in a few years it would pay itself off and just run from there.
They'll look at if this homeowner wants the solar maybe on the roof of their home, they'll look at the truss structure at the roof of the home just to make sure it can support that weight. And they'll inspect the electrical distribution system for how are we going to tie this into your network. And then a key thing that a lot of people forget about is that the shading issue. So if you've got a great space for solar, but you've got a big tree in front of it that's going to shade it this time of the year, that's probably not a good match.
There's a lot of technical details involved which can determine where we can't put the panels at, but then the first step is actually to assess the house and see where the owner wants it to be at.
You can put it on the roof. Generally people do flush mount, which dictates the angle of the array, which also affects the amount of power that it can output. But putting it on the ground mount, we don't have to worry about the structure, just any underlying utilities. And there's a large chunk of area right here, so it can be very beneficial with no possible shading around. But I'd say generally speaking, they have a nice chunk of open land. They can put in a ground mount location and run the array back to their basement and interconnect into the breaker.
Solar energy initially started off being quite expensive, but then we are seeing nowadays that the continuous cost of solar panels have been reducing drastically since we proceed in technology, and Nowadays, the efficiency of panels are increasing, photovoltaic panels are increasing, and the cost of photovoltaic panels are also decreasing.
It's the matter of the initial investment, so it could be anywhere from $40,000, $50,000 to $60,000, depending on the size of the array, obviously, and then taking advantage of any incentives, such as the federal investment tax credit, which is about 30%.
The whole idea of sustainable, renewable, you know, instead of just burning and burning fuel and everything like that, there's got to be better ways to get energy. You know, as Americans, we use a lot of energy, so find ways to do that without hurting the earth. I'm all for it.
I've always been interested in renewables and sustainability, so that was a big thing, but also understanding the financing economics behind implementing them, which is, you know, kind of outside of my normal range, but I'm becoming better at it, and it's just been a very beneficial time.
We can't depend on fossil fuels for much longer, and depending on how people are so inclined towards, I believe projects like these in implementation are essential.
The solar certification process aids students in gaining knowledge and experiences that allow them to explore careers in alternative energy after graduation. That wraps up another Boiler Bytes. Be sure to check us out online at boilerbytes.com. See you next time.